To discuss, let's bring in our guest. We're joined today by Grant Stern. He's the executive editor at Occupy Democrats. Also joining us, haven't seen her in a while, but glad she's back, April Chapman. She's a Project 21 ambassador. Good morning.
Good morning,
Good morning
to you both.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Good morning. Well, April, we'll start with you. Your thoughts on President Trump's words and how today is Memorial Day. Your thoughts on that?
You know, I'm so excited to see a Republican leader who emphasizes strength and patriotism and national service. And these young men and women at West Point, what a treat for them to hear Donald Trump honoring them for their service. If you can remember, Biden would celebrate the Tik Tok influencer or a climate activist. But as you guys know, we have to have a strong military, and having a strong commander-in-chief is important, because we must reinforce, like you said, duty and discipline and national pride, and that's something we haven't seen in a while.
Definitely. What are your thoughts, Grant?
Well, I mean, I think it's very important that we recognize on Memorial Day the important role that the United States military played in defending our country from day one until now. But I also think it's important that we support the people who are at the VA, many of whom are facing layoffs. I think it's important that we support the veterans themselves, many of whom have been cut off from the federal contracting system by a lot of changes in the new administration. And I think that we need to do that right away, because real veterans are struggling right now because of the change of administration from the Biden administration to the Trump administration and Donald Trump's new policies that are adverse to veterans. So we need to do better for them.
Now, Grant, from what I understand, with this current administration under President Trump, they are making inroads in terms of making things better for our veterans and to uncover whatever waste, fraud, and abuse that is going on in our government across the board. But April, you want to comment on what Grant just said?
Yeah, I mean, I understand his sentiment with wanting to talk about the veterans, but I think we forget that it was actually Donald Trump that improved conditions for veterans, particularly as it relates to their health care. It was Donald Trump who went to see our veterans at their point of need, and it was President Biden whose disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan was a national and international embarrassment. So I think if we're going to compare which administration cared more about veterans and who was hurting, I think it's easiest, it makes more sense to say that it was Donald Trump who exhibited actual measurable results and caused more and did not cause more harm to our veterans, when we cannot say the same about Biden.
True. I think President Trump did a very good job and continues to do a very good job for our veterans. But I do think that the country needs to even do more. And with all the manufacturing and other jobs coming back on shore, I think reinvesting into work preparedness, because they have a lot of skills that are fungible into the private sector. So I believe President Trump will also work on those things. But Stephen Miller joined Newsmax's Rob Finnerty's show to discuss how radical judges think they are above the law.
Well, that's the right word to use, of course. Tyranny. Judicial tyranny. This is a judicial coup by communist Marxist judges against the laws, Constitution, and democracy of the United States. The American people held an election, voted overwhelmingly in a landslide, in a historic mandate, to deliver sovereignty and security and homeland defense to this nation.
Stephen Miller's remarks were in response to judges blocking Trump from barring foreign students from Harvard. Students that hate America shouldn't be allowed to study in America. What are your thoughts?
I can't understand for the life of me why our elite schools, our schools such as Harvard, are allowed to harbor these foreign nationals who are openly hostile to American values. They should be grateful that we allow them access to our institutions of higher learning to learn and obtain an education. But what we are witnessing is that these institutions are breeding and training grounds for communists and Marxists, and these anti-American thoughts and sentiments, they must be stomped out. And I thought I thought the Cold War had taken care of that, but it's obvious that it is now alive and well. So I agree with Stephen Miller's that these activist judges, they are absolutely out of control. They are anti-American, and many of them were probably educated in these same institutions. And so we need to look at what they're being taught and get back to American values. We cannot have them legislating from the bench this way.
Grant, your thoughts?
Donald Trump is trashing the First Amendment. He's trashing free speech.
How so?
And by attacking Harvard for their beliefs. This has nothing to do with any individual, any actual problem. This is all a matter of perception. And Donald Trump simply wants to bring Harvard to heel. He put out his first order by accident, he says. And now he's saying, well, I don't like your beliefs, so I'm going to retaliate directly against you. This is First Amendment retaliation. It's
So let me ask you a
actually
question,
a civil
Grant.
litigation tort.
When
can
you
sue over
see
this, and
the
Harvard did, and they were very
protesters
successful
on
so
these
far.
campuses and they are attacking essentially Jewish students, and you're telling me that nothing is going on, nothing happened that shouldn't be happening?
Does America engage in collective punishment? Does America
Grant, I
retaliate
just said
against
we have
people for their
Jewish
beliefs,
students
or
who are afraid to
and do
leave
we-
their dorm
and do we-
rooms
and do we
because
engage
of
the
the hate
individuals-
and violence they are
And
facing?
do we engage the individuals for the harms they have done if they have gone
You're not gonna
beyond
answer
the
my
line of free
question.
speech? I'm telling you, are we going after the individuals who have harmed someone? Or is Donald Trump simply punishing an entire institution for the views of a loud minority? And I think that's what's happening here. That's why the First Amendment exists, to protect free speech, because your minority view
Violence
becomes
is not free speech,
when you're
Grant.
in the minority. If you're in the majority,
Violence.
you may not need those protections, but we have to protect people who, whether we disagree with them or not. And I strongly disagree with people that oppose Israel and that support Hamas. But you still have to support them because the First Amendment gives us the free expression. And someday your views may be on the other side of the administration's views, and you don't want them doing the same thing to you, do you? I wouldn't.
But you know what, April? I think what Grant is missing here is the fact that President Trump is making a move not against an individual, but correcting the structure and system that allows individuals to come in America to learn, which is a privilege, not a right. And you know what else he exposed,
there's been
April?
no bill
He
to reform
exposed the
anything.
fact that Harvard, I didn't know this, 31% of international students. Like, that's almost
America's
one-third.
taking the top
That
minds
is
from all
that
around
is
the world and bringing them
extremely
here, and you
high,
object to that?
and
I think
taking
that's a
and
bad
taking
idea.
opportunities, educational opportunities away from Americans. So I look at President Trump is trying to bring jobs back on shore, and at the
crazy.
same
No.
time is making sure that we have even more seats in the classroom for Americans. What say you?
The only thing that I would add is that I agree with Grant. Free speech is a wonderful privilege, but it's bestowed upon Americans.
It's a
you don't
right.
get to come
It's a
here
right. It's
and
not a
say what
privilege.
you
It's a
want to
right.
say against
That is a
the
constitutional
American
right.
people and against our government and expect to stay here.
That's
if you are
exactly
a
the heart of
student
free
and you are
speech.
in a, I'm sorry?
That's the heart of free speech. Why do you think that the right to protest
For
the government
Americans,
is part
the
of the
First
First
Amendment does not apply
for anyone
to
in the
people who are
United
not citizens
States?
of this country.
Okay, the Constitution applies to every single person within the jurisdiction of the United States. Okay,
Yes,
if you
but
are
when we
here and
find
you're a
that
person,
you are here
you have free
inciting
speech.
violence, causing harm to Americans,
Yeah, but
you
the
need
the
to be
standard
dealt
to
with
incite violence
judicially.
is very, very high. Okay, it's called the Brandenburg case, and you have to incite immediate unlawful behavior to be held
And that's
accountable
happening on
for
these
your
college
speech,
campuses.
inciting
I think-
conduct.
We're not going to
that's
allow
violent.
you
But
to
Grant, I
hold
think-
people hostage, hold entire institutions.
Nobody is being held hostage on an American campus today. There are hostages in Israel, in Gaza, and
actually
that's
not
very
today on
unfortunate.
Memorial Day, Grant. You know that. You know that.
But Grant, here's the situation, right? You and I, we didn't choose to be born in America. We were privileged to be born right here in America. But these individual students, they weren't born, they have no claim to America. It's a privilege in a different way for them to actually come study here. So they have a choice right? And President Trump is saying, you know what? We're going to stop that unless Harvard and other universities protect Jewish students, because it might start with Jews, right? But then if we let that continue,
we expect the
it can
universities
spill
to protect the
over
students,
to people
but that doesn't mean you
who look
punish
like
them
April
because of
Deneen
some other
and
student's
me
speech.
and others. So it's got to stop.
Look, John, don't you?
Grant
This is
doesn't
America.
apply the
We
same
punish the
standard
people
to
who break
Americans.
the law. Okay, in America, we punish the people who break the law. We don't punish the people near the people who break the law. We don't punish the people who saw the people break the law, and we don't punish the people that could have maybe stopped the people that broke the law but didn't. Okay, we punish
know
the
what?
people that
Absolutely
broke
do
the law.
that doesn't
aid
even-
and abet.
I'm sorry, but that
only-
doesn't even make any
only
sense.
when they've
Look,
done it
if I have
beyond
a
a reasonable
store,
doubt.
let me say this really quickly. If I have a store and it's constantly being infiltrated by people who are stealing things off the shelf, right?
Then you arrest the thieves.
I'm not accusing others who come in the store, but I'm going to bring about tighter controls.
But do you arrest the store clerk because there's shoplifting going on without any evidence?
But the
aided and
point
abetted,
is, you
yes.
gotta look at the structure and the control, and at the same time,
the store clerk's not the owner.
Fix the imbalance. Why? Because if we're giving them billions of dollars of taxpayers, they better have more seats for American students.
Look, America's wealth comes from people immigrating to this country, okay? Every single person on this broadcast right now is the descendant of someone who was not born originally in this country. You, me, all four of us, okay? None of us are Native American. And that's what makes America
We are
special.
American.
That people have all come here. We're not Native American. We're not part of the Native American tribes. I don't believe. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. If either of the three of you is, please speak out. But I'm just saying, all of us are immigrants. We're descended from immigrants, and that's what makes America.
So we
a
hate to
great
cut you
place.
off there, Grant. Final word, April?
Yeah, I just think it's interesting. The left always exposes their anti-American sentiment, and they will cape harder for those who are not citizens of this country at the expense
stand
and
up for civil
harm
rights.
of actual Americans. I think it is disgusting, and I think it is high time that my taxpayer dollars is not going to be used to fund institutions that want to become trained Marxist and communistic indoctrination centers.
All right,
Exactly. And when you come into my house, you better act right.
Well, we got to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, April Chapman and Grant Stern.
Thanks for having us.
Have a good day. Happy holiday.